There's something quietly defiant about preferring winter when the entire world seems engineered to worship summer. Everyone around you is counting down to beach trips, rooftop parties, endless sunshine, and you? You're the one who feels most alive when the air goes cold, when the days grow short, when everyone else retreats indoors complaining. It's not that you hate joy. It's that you found it somewhere. Most people aren't looking. And if you've ever felt a little out of step with the seasonal enthusiasm around you, a little misunderstood when you say you actually love winter, stay with me, because what I'm about to explain will reframe everything you thought that preference meant about you. Most people assume loving winter is about aesthetics, cozy sweaters, hot chocolate, maybe some holiday nostalgia. But that's surface level. The real psychology here cuts much deeper, and it reveals something fundamental about how your brain processes the world, how you regulate emotion, and what kind of stimulation you actually crave. This isn't about weather. This is about wiring. Let's start with something neuroscience has known for decades, but culture constantly ignores. Not all nervous systems respond to stimulation the same way. Some people are what researchers call high reactive. Their brains are wired to process sensory input more deeply, more intensely. Bright lights, loud sounds, heat, crowds. These aren't just mildly uncomfortable. They're physiologically overwhelming. The nervous system gets flooded, and when that happens, the brain doesn't relax. It defends. Now think about summer. It's loud, it's hot, it's socially relentless. There's this unspoken pressure to be out, to be on, to be visible and energized and available. The days are longer, which sounds like a gift until you realize it also means there's less natural permission to withdraw. Darkness used to be a signal, rest now, but summer stretches daylight to 9 p.m. And suddenly there's this ambient guilt if you're not making the most of it. If you're not at the barbecue, if you're not on the boat, if you're not performing the joy everyone else seems to feel so effortlessly for high reactive people. And this includes a significant portion of introverts, highly sensitive individuals, and deep processors. Summer isn't freedom, it's exhausting. It's sensory overload wrapped in social expectation. And winter is the opposite. It's quiet, it's dark, it's slow. The world physically contracts, and that contraction isn't depressing, it's relieving. It gives your nervous system permission to match the environment. You're not fighting against the season, you're finally in sync with it. But here's where it gets even more interesting. There's a concept in psychology called stimulation threshold, and it varies wildly from person to person. Some people need high levels of external stimulation to feel alive. They're extroverted, sensation-seeking, dopamine-driven. They thrive in chaos because their baseline arousal is low, so they chase intensity to feel normal. But others have a naturally high baseline arousal. Their internal world is already intense. They're already processing, already feeling, already thinking at a level that doesn't require additional input. For them, external stimulation isn't energizing. It's static. It's interference. Does this sound like you? Have you ever noticed that you do your best thinking in quiet, low-stimulation environments? That your most creative ideas come not in the noise of a crowded summer afternoon, but in the stillness of a winter evening? That's not coincidence. That's your brain operating at its optimal setting. Winter people aren't running from life. They're running toward depth. They're the ones who would rather have one meaningful conversation than 10 shallow ones. Who would rather read a book by a window than scroll through vacation photos? Who feel more connected to themselves in solitude than they ever do in a crowd. And our culture, our hyperactive, extroversion-biased, summer-worshipping culture, has taught them to feel weird about that, like something's wrong, like they're missing out. But what if you're not missing out? What if you're just playing a different game entirely? There's also an emotional component here that doesn't get talked about enough. Summer is performance season. It's the season of visibility. Bodies are more exposed. Social calendars are packed. There's this crackling energy of comparison. Who's doing what? Who looks how? Who's living their best life? And for people who are more introspective, more self-aware, more attuned to their internal landscape than their external image, that environment can feel deeply alienating. Not because they can't participate, but because participation requires a kind of energy expenditure that doesn't refill the tank. It drains it. Winter, by contrast, is the season of interiority. It's when the world stops asking you to prove anything. You're allowed to be still. You're allowed to think. You're allowed to feel without having to explain or perform or justify. The cold becomes a boundary. The darkness becomes privacy. And for people who live most richly in their inner world, that's not deprivation. That's sanctuary. When was the last time you felt completely at ease, not because everything around you was perfect, but because the environment finally matched your internal rhythm? For winter people, that moment often comes in November, December, January, when everyone else is lamenting the cold and you're finally exhaling. So what does this say about you if winter is your season? It says you're someone who doesn't need external validation to feel full. It says you've learned to find richness in subtraction, not just addition. It says your emotional world is complex enough that you don't need the world to be loud for you to feel alive. That's not a deficit. That's emotional maturity. Our culture equates happiness with brightness, warmth, visibility, noise. But some of the deepest, most meaningful states of being happen in the opposite conditions. Reflection, solitude, stillness, rest. These aren't lesser states. They're essential ones. And winter people understand that instinctively. You're not antisocial. You're selectively social. You're not depressed. You're discerning. You're not afraid of life. You're just not interested in the version of life that requires constant performance. You found something quieter, something slower, something that doesn't need an audience to matter. And here's the real kicker. In a world that's getting louder, faster, more chaotic by the year, your preference for winter might actually be an evolutionary advantage. You're not burning out chasing stimulation. You're not fragmenting your attention across 1,000 inputs. You're going deep. You're staying grounded. You're protecting your capacity for focus, for meaning, for presence. While everyone else is sprinting through summer, you're building something that lasts. So ask yourself this. What does your love of winter reveal about where you invest your emotional energy? Are you chasing what everyone else is chasing, or have you quietly opted out of that race entirely? And if you have, what does that make possible for you that isn't possible for them? If this felt a little too accurate, a little too seen, that's because it is. You're not broken, you're not boring, you're not missing the point. You've just found meaning in a place the crowd isn't looking. And that, quietly, is one of the most powerful things you can do. If this resonated, you'll want to explore what it means to be wired differently in a world built for the opposite. Comment below if winter is your season. I want to know I'm not alone in this. And if you're ready to go even deeper into why you think the way you do, the next video is waiting.